So I said that I would review all the Bad Boys movies which I've done, and then I said I'd be ranking all of them from worst to best, which I'm going to be doing right now. Yeah man, if you like these videos, subscribe man, subscribe. Okay, starting off with number 4, Bad Boys 2. This movie came out in 2003, it came out years after the first one. And usually when a sequel takes long to come out, it can either be very good or very bad. And at least in my opinion, this movie was really bad in my opinion, alright? It's just my opinion. Like, Will Smith and Marlon Lawrence was still great in this movie, but I just felt like the villain was whack in this movie. It was just the same type of typical drug dealer trying to take over Miami. And I feel like this movie didn't really add anything different in this one. All they really did was top up the amount of explosions they'll show you, make the visuals more, I guess, appealing. But then again, of course, if this movie came out in 2003, it's going to look better than the first one because the first one came out in the 90s. So of course, you know, visually, I feel like the movie was always going to look good anyway. And since I feel like the visuals were the priority in this film, it just didn't really feel like I had like a story in terms of just, you know, a compelling villainous story. I know I said that having like a drug dealer story can be cliche. I still wouldn't mind if I did enjoy the villain and if I did like the, you know, story, you know, for the most part. But at least in my opinion, what we got in this film was just explosions, and it just didn't really feel like I was watching a movie, almost sometimes watching someone playing like a game in a way. I just feel like the story wasn't strong in this movie. I feel like I said, the visuals were just the priority in this movie, and which is why I thought like the villain was probably really like bad and just kind of just corny. You know, the villain was easily forgettable in this movie. He didn't bring anything new to the franchise, whereas in the first Bad Boys movie, I thought the villain was a lot funnier. He was really corny in the first one, this other villain, but he still came across as like a funny guy. And I kind of feel like because of the first one as a 90s movie, they can get away with doing this sort of like corny, cringy scenes or corny dialogues. And like I said, I just feel like it just works as a movie. Like 90s movies is different from like the 21st century movies. Things they did in the 90s movie you couldn't do in like, you know, 21st century movies. It just wouldn't work. Like I feel like in the first movie, the villain almost like kind of acknowledged that he was being cheesy, but he kind of played with it, which in my opinion created a more entertaining, you know, character, entertaining, you know, movie in my opinion. You know, in this sequel, we're introduced to Martin Lawrence's sister, who's like an undercover detective who's also trying to take this main guy down. But at least in my opinion, I just felt like she didn't really add anything to the story. She was kind of just there. She was kind of like the in-between for Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Since her and Will Smith were secretly, you know, going out, Martin Lawrence didn't know, so they had that sort of dynamic between, the, you know, beef between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, which, I mean, who really cared? Like, who actually really cared? You know, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith were amazing in this. This movie was definitely one of the funniest Bad Boys, hands down. One thing I can guarantee about this franchise is that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence never disappoint when it comes to delivering their performances and becoming, you know, the characters that they're meant to be. But to be fair, we were introduced to Reggie, Reggie in this movie, so I can't really complain too much. That actually is another highlight for me. For me to complain about Bad Boys 2, if we didn't get Bad Boys 2, we would have never got Reggie. So to be fair, I'll ease up on the whole, you know, Bad Boys 2 diss, because Reggie is probably one of my favorite characters in the franchise. But moving on to number 3, Bad Boys 1. So this was definitely a great movie. I can see why people love this movie, and I can also see why people fell in love with the franchise because of this movie. But at least to me, this movie didn't really appeal to me. I feel like the opening sequence was amazing. Probably one of the best opening sequences I've seen in a long time. And I say best opening scene as in, I mean like one of the funniest scenes, like the whole, you know, Martin Lawrence dropping a fry in Will Smith's car. And you see the way Will Smith looks at him and is just like, get it. I just thought that was amazing acting from Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Obviously, they're known for doing comedy, so of course they're going to deliver, you know, great performances. You know, I thought all the characters were good in this movie. I don't think anyone in this movie was bad. I thought everyone was entertaining in their own way, in their own right. And I thought one of the main characters in this movie, Julie, who's like, you know, being chased by the, you know, main villains because she witnesses like a death. I say witness a death, but it's her friend's death. So I guess it makes it a bit more impactful. But she was like a nice addition to this film. She was like the third main character along with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. And she was really funny as well. She had that sort of low-key comedic aspect to her, but then she was also great at, you know, adding that serious aspect to it as well. Yeah, the story plot was cliche, but there was still a clear beginning and ending, and it was still great because you had great characters, great dialogue, so it kind of just made it more of a better movie. Okay, coming in number 2 is Bad Boys 4. You know, Bad Boys 4, I kind of thought, why are you making another one again? This ain't gonna be good. I was wrong. Yeah, I was wrong again. You can definitely tell now they're heading towards the action-packed sort of type of film now. Bad Boys started off like with a, you know, trying to catch these drug dealers, in like a small sort of, you know, scale film. But I feel like with Bad Boys 4, you can tell they're leaning way more towards the action now. And they still have comedy, but the action is more the priority. And I'm not too mad at that, as long as the stunts don't go way over the top. Which in this movie, it kind of does, I can't lie. They do go over the top with the stunts. But not to the point where it feels like a Fast and Furious movie. But I feel like they're leaning towards that, which I don't want them to do. The villain in this movie was okay. He wasn't my favorite villain, but he was alright. He was like a, you know, typical villain, but he was still, you know, interesting to watch. He still did enough to where you thought, you know, this guy is somewhat dangerous. He wasn't taken for a joke like the first two characters. Then again, this guy was getting mashed up a couple of times, I can't lie, but, you know, nonetheless, he was still a good villain, and yeah, he still did what he needed to do as a character and a villain. You know, I don't think anyone in this movie was really bad when it came to the acting. I thought for the most part, especially Will Smith as well, there were certain scenes in the movie where he really was like about it. Like, this guy was not ramping around. Reggie and Martin Lawrence interacting is always funny. They always had this sort of beef and dialogue, but at the end of the day, you know, they still had that sort of chemistry where they still respect each other, but there's always like that sort of tension between them, but it comes across as a, you know, funny way. It's not taken seriously. And I can't say it just enough, Armando is a gangster. He's always great in these movies. The guy's cool as hell, so I have nothing really bad to say about him. And he always does a great job at showing you who this character is and showing you his emotions and what he's thinking and what he's feeling. You know, a broken man that was led to believe that, you know, his father was killed by, you know, Will Smith's character. And it's the way he brings that character out is just, it's great. I can't lie, it's great. And yeah, it is a cliche story, but I don't care. This movie is fun, it's entertaining, the action is fun, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence is fun, Reggie's amazing, Armando's great, and the characters are all, for the most part, good. What makes a franchise survive? Most of the time it's going to be the characters that are in it. Let's be honest. Because if anything, screw the story if the characters are whack. Screw the story, because at the end of the day, I want to see good characters, I want to see good dialogue. There's also a fourth wall scene, which is amazing. At first, I didn't know what to think of it, but then after, you know what, I kind of thought about it, and I kind of sat down and thought, you know what, that was cool, man, that was cool. I like that a lot, I like that a lot. Coming in at number 1, Bad Boys 3. Before watching this movie, I thought, you know, after number 2 was trash in my opinion. I thought I wasn't going to like number 3. I thought it was going to be boring. I thought it was going to be just as bad as number 2. But boy, I was heavily wrong. I was heavily wrong. This movie takes a much darker approach. This was directed by a different director. The first 2 movies were directed by Michael Bay. So if you know a lot about Michael Bay, he likes to do like a lot of explosions. And you know, he likes to show his work through the visuals. So like I said, explosions. And to me, it didn't really appeal to me because I'm more about good characters and a good, decent story versus just showing the story through visuals. That's just not really for me personally, but each to their own. And I know a lot of people that like the first 2 movies, so yeah. But in this movie, they let you know from the get-go, this is a serious, no ramping around movie. But you can also tell in this movie, they like to use, you know, a lot of the nighttime visuals. We're introduced to the character Armando, and we're introduced in the fact that this guy is a dangerous, you know, gangster. That's, you know, he ain't playing around. He ain't like this comedic effect guy. This guy is serious. This guy, you know, he means to do business. And I feel like in the first 2 movies where, in my opinion, it felt more of a comedy with action in it. In this movie, they let you know that the action is a priority and comedy is the second half. Comedy is like over there. It's still funny, but it's over there. From the beginning, when we see the villain, you know, Armando, we see all this like great action taking place. At least to me, those first opening minutes of the film with the action, to me, that action was more of an action than the first 2 Bad Boys films combined, hands down. Like I said, it's not really a diss. It's just what I, you know, feel. And I do believe, let's be honest, number 3 is definitely more of an action movie. Like, it just is. You know, I'd love to say what other people might think about that, but I honestly do believe that number 3 is more of a center action piece, you know, film. That's what I liked about this movie a lot. It felt more serious. It felt more of like a darker, different film than we got from the first 2 movies. Because if you're going to make a number 3, you have to make it different. You had to make it different from the first and second movie. Number 2 came out in 2003. Number 3 came out in 2020. So if you're going to make another one, you best make sure that it's going to be something different and better. And in my opinion, I feel like this movie is a lot more bloodier. Yeah, number 1 and 2, you see, you know, people get shot and stuff. I feel like there wasn't a lot of blood being shown. But I feel like in this movie, there's a lot more gorier and there's a lot more, you know, it's cool to look at. You actually see the blood in this movie. You actually see more of the, I guess, effects to when the person is being attacked. And I like just love the brutality of Armando. This guy, like I said, he's like an assassin in this movie. He's almost like Hitman from the games where he's no emotions. You can see this sort of blank face and he's all action, no talk. That's the definition of this character. Which is why Armando to me was my favorite villain in this entire franchise. I'm not going to speak on Will Smith and Martin Lawrence because as always, they're always great in these movies. So I'm kind of getting annoyed and sick and tired of talking about the same thing They're all great in this movie, yeah? Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all great in it, alright? Chemistry is always great. And I feel like I was also invested because I felt like there were actually more stakes. You know, people were getting popped left and right, left and right. There were certain scenes where I was kind of shocked when something happened. I kind of saw it coming, but I was still shocked when it actually did happen. Because if you're comparing the first and second one, they're taking a whole different approach in this one. It feels like it's more of like an engaging story now. You know, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are a lot older in this movie, so it kind of makes you a bit scared for them at the same time. Of course, with these movies, you're going to assume they're going to survive, but I feel like this movie was great at making me think, oh, they could get killed off. In my opinion, it done a great job at that, I can't lie. And to be fair, I don't say that about a lot of action movies nowadays, so that's a prop for this movie. We also have Amanda's mom in this movie, but she's not really the main villain. She's kind of like the behind the scenes villain. She's kind of a coward. She's just hiding away, calling Amanda all the time, saying, do this, do that, you know, just being like some whiny little mum, innit? With Amanda, this guy was actually doing things, he was actually getting things done. And the way he went about it, it was cold, man. It was cold. I like the visuals. I love the fight scenes. I love the stunts. This is probably one of the best action movies that I've seen in a long time. In a long time. And the reason why I put number 3 above number 4 was simply because the story I put at number 3 to me was just more compelling. It felt more like a fresh movie. Even though they took elements from the first and second one, it still felt like a fresh, you know, movie. And I felt like the whole storyline of Amanda trying to pop these different detectives, different cops, and, you know, also trying to stop this guy. And of course, Martin Lawrence is also trying to stop this guy. I just felt like it was such more of a compelling story because I felt like the stakes were so much higher. So yeah, I still love number 4. I still love the action in number 4, but number 3, I'm sorry, had to go out number 1. It just was a better movie in my opinion. The story was much better, and I also feel like the stunts are good enough to where it's not too over the top in number 3. It's just about in the center, which I like. That's my rankings for the Bad Boys franchise. Yeah, man, it's been kind of fun watching these movies. I can't lie, it's been a, you know, different experience for me watching these, you know, 4 movies. And yeah, definitely open my eyes to, you know, give more movies a chance and give more action movies a chance as well to see, you know, maybe it could be a good movie. Maybe that action movie could be a good movie. So it opened my eyes to give more action movies a go now. But if you like this video, like, subscribe, let me know what you thought about these Bad Boys movies. And I'm interested to see what you guys' rankings would be in terms of, you know, the Bad Boys franchise, because, you know, my one might be completely different from yours. But yeah, Reggie, you're a legend. Amanda, you're a legend. As always, see ya.